Thank you. Appreciate it.
This work session, regular meeting of the Township Council is called to order. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that adequate notice of this work session, regular meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, was made by the posting on the bulletin board at the municipal complex and transmitted to the officially designated newspapers a list of dates annually indicating that this work session regular meeting would take place at the Franklin Township Municipal Complex at 7 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, February 25th, 2014. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public, is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation, which will be given by Deputy Mayor Brian Regan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
O God, the Creator and Redeemer of all the faithful, hear our prayers, and through your infinite love and mercy, graciously grant us the strength and power in our thoughts and decisions to be for the benefit of all people at all times. Amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll of the council.
Councilman Chase.
Here.
Councilwoman Francois. Councilman Kramer.
Here.
Mayor Levine.
Here.
Councilman Prasad. Deputy Mayor Regan.
Here.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Here.
Councilman Vasanella.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
And Councilwoman Francois just walked in. I'll give her a here.
Okay, good. We have a quorum. We are following along on our agenda, which is over here by our clerk, Ms. McCarthy, along with some associated resolutions and ordinances. Feel free to get up and see them. They're usually available the weekend before the meeting. You can see them on our website and take a look at the ordinances and resolutions upon which we will be voting, and certainly feel free to do that. So we now come to item number 5 on our agenda, proclamations and commendations, of which we do not have any. So we go swiftly to item number 6, Mayor's Report. And for today, my mug for the meeting is George Washington. Got that at Mount Vernon. And last week we passed President's Day. Most everyone was off, except for Franklin Township school children. They were making up a snow day. It was originally conceived as a combination of Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday, but it's kind of morphed into something I don't think anyone's really got a handle on. Some say it's a combination, some say it's for all presidents, some for democracy. I think it's the only real holiday, American holiday without a real mission. So I guess it's sales or times off. But there's even a disagreement on whether you have an apostrophe in there or not. So I guess one of those things we don't have to resolve to be happy at everything. So usually our meetings are the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. Exceptions are July, August, and December, in which the meeting is only on the second Tuesday of the month. And we're going to have a few special meetings on our budget hearings. You can ask or see that on our website. What's been asked and come up before is snow and road salt issues. Everyone basically on this side of the country is under where they would like to be, but we're stretching and making do as we can. Hopefully I'm going to get around the state a little bit more. I am now on the board of directors of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors as of about a week ago. It's bipartisan. There's always an equal amount of Democratic and Republican, so it stays bipartisan. So that's my goal, to exchange some ideas with other elected officials. Also, I was in attendance today at the governor's budget address down in Trenton, at the gallery with other Democratic and Republican figures. The governor outlined some economic challenges There's obviously disagreement on a partisan and nonpartisan basis, so I'm not going to go into that at all. But the one thing I think we all agree is the state has to be diligent in its budget and its operations to keep fiscally strong for all of us. And in relation to that, the council is going to be doing our budget hearings pretty soon, and that's certainly going to be our goal also, be fiscally constrained, yet provide as much services as we need and desire. So certainly if you have opinions on our budget and our town, we are all glad to hear that. So if you want information, certainly come into our new improved website. It's got great information. You can sign up for updates. And as always, for fun and sometimes information, my mayor Facebook page has that on it too. And that concludes the mayor's report. So now we come to item number 7, Deputy Mayor's report. So Deputy Mayor Brian Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the last council meeting I missed, I had some minor surgery scheduled 2 weeks ago on Wednesday. So the Tuesday night before, quite honestly, I just was not in any mind frame to sit in the council room. But I do want to comment because I did miss a fairly important ordinance that was voted on relative to the Hamilton Street Business Corporation. So I was not here to cast a vote, but I do want to go on record that if I was here, I would have been casting approval for the ordinance as we introduced it. I know for various members, this was emotional, feeling that, in fact, I read a headline that said council is taking control back or taking control. And really, it's not quite an accurate view of it because council ultimately always has, the final say in what was being done with that budget. And if we decided not to support it, we have the ability to do that at any council meeting. I do believe that in the meetings that I was involved in as on the ad hoc committee with Mayor Brian Levine, Councilman Vasanella, and Councilman Wright, that working with the staff, the township manager, Vince and Mark, our planner and our engineer, that everyone had the mission to come up with an ordinance that would work. We also had a very stringent timeline. When we were given this task back in November, I believe is when we met here, early November, when it was the first meeting, we said that we would want to do that in 90 days or less than 3 months. We did meet that time frame. The structure put in place, similar to the advisory board for open space, I believe is one that will allow input from the community members, from business, from renters, business owners, and property owners, and the community, and that's what we are looking for. The harsh reality is that the changes that some people have hoped to see on Hamilton Street have not occurred, given the structure that was in place for the years that it was. So I do not think, nor believe that it was improper or not even, I do believe that it was a good idea that council stepped in the way it did to do it. Hopefully, we'll get together soon. We'll have the first meeting will be of that advisory committee, and then we'll starting to move forward. There will be timelines put in place for reports to come back to council so that council can more actively monitor the status and the progress that is occurring on Hamilton Street relative to the plans and the vision for that. So again, I know this was something last week, but I felt it important that as a council person who wasn't here able to cast a vote that night, that I officially go on record as to what my vote would have been. Let's see. My notes just disappeared. Okay. Actually, for the most part, that's it for my deputy's report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And just going to do, since I foreshadowed the budget meetings, and I'm gonna ask
I
for
wanted to say.
Pardon me?
Sorry.
Oh, no, go right ahead then. Good.
Sorry, there was one other thing. So the mayor did mention about the budget process, him attending the governor's address today, and the fact that we are in the process. The financial oversight committee working with our township manager working actively on that. I won't go into the details because I'm sure Council Kramer is going to give some sort of readout on that.
No,
No?
we do
Okay.
that at the first thing.
Okay, so then I'll just briefly, the subcommittee is meeting. We are spending many hours, probably over hundreds of hours have probably already been invested in putting together the budget between Bob and his staff. So we do want to make aware that process started with the aim of having it introduced in either very early April, depending upon when the state gets there together and they file submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't mention budget. Just wanted to, Ms. McCarthy, help me a little bit. I think we're on Monday, March 10th,
Yes.
Thursday, March 13th,
Mhm.
and Monday, March 24th
That's correct.
at 7 PM here in the council chambers. Those are the only three, right? For the
Yes.
budget, unless we need more. Okay. So those are budget hearing dates. Those are open to the public. Right here, you can come comment as always. Oh, pardon me. And I'll lean on Ms. McCarthy again. Don't think if I do it right. Monday, March 10th, 7 PM. Thursday, March 13th, 7 PM. And Monday, March 24th, 7 PM.
That's correct.
And right here in the council chambers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good. And now we come to item number 8 on our budget, public discussion. This will be the only time during this meeting for the public to speak at the meeting, and we're glad to hear what you have to say. Our policy is each person comes up for 5 minutes. We don't yield time. Address all your comments to the council. There'll be a timer, so when you hear us, that means you've got 3 minutes. Pardon me, that means 3 minutes has elapsed, and when you hear multiple tones, that means your 5 minutes is done, and I'll ask you to wrap up your thoughts. If there's anything we can answer during that time, we will be glad to do so. So in a moment, I'll open it, and if you raise your hand, I'll call on you, and it's our policy to have one person come up each person come up one per meeting. Is there a motion to open meeting for public discussion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion is carried. Meeting is over. Public discussion on any item of interest. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand. When I recognize you, come up and give your name and address. Yes. Come up. Yes.
Hi, Linda Powell, 45 Piccadilly. I was at this meeting, and I had some notes on what I wanted to say, and I had them this earlier today, and I see them now on the floor. But basically, it had to do with hydraulic fracturing, which we call fracking, and I was very glad to hear almost every council person speak last time about their views on fracking, and as I know, this is a very environmentally aware and proactive township, which I'm very glad to be a part of. Some of the things that were mentioned, which I thought I was impressed with, I believe it was Councilman Chase, who was talking about the fact that even if we didn't have fracking right here in New Jersey or in Franklin, that the Delaware water from the fracking in Pennsylvania was allowed could be contaminating the water supply where we get some of our water from. So that really is of concern to all of us. To go along with that, I also want to let people know about a movie that will be shown at the library on March 23rd at 1:15. That's when we have the room. And it's a fantastic documentary called Gasland 2. I've actually seen it 3 times and learned something new every time. So let your friends know about it, bring your families and your neighbors. It's Gasland 2. It's a documentary by Josh Fox, and it has a lot of good information in it. And that's all I'd like to say, except to give you these folders, which has some information on fracking, and also a sample ordinance that was passed by Highland Park across the river. For those who don't know or remember, both Highland Park and New Brunswick passed ordinances against fracking, and that followed with Middlesex County passing an ordinance against fracking. So we're really hoping that we're going to be the leaders in our county to ban fracking. And thank you.
They would
Oh, thank you, Ms. Powell.
put the gas down to
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Ms. Saba?
ethane would still pass.
Come to that.
Oh, I put last week. Yes, I have it. I didn't know what it was.
Hey, thanks. Good, how about yourself? Your husband alone.
Good evening. Manija Sabah, 146 Emerson Road. I'm again following last session. I'm again going to talk about hydraulic fracturing and drones. Hydraulic fracturing, as I said before, I'm really happy to be in the community. This county that is very environmentally sensitive and proactive. But also in response to some of the things that was said last time, that right now, as we know, hydraulic fracturing is a problem that water, if it's not in this area, the water spreads all over. And as Councilman Chase also reminded us that despite, even if it's not here, it's going to affect us. So for us, it's important to have ordinances and also encourage other communities to have it, so we have a network that are all state banded and also is encouraged to places to do it. And maybe if you don't know, the CEO of ExxonMobil, who has been rejecting and denying, getting down activists and people who are against environmental, talking about against hydraulic fracturing, has joined a lawsuit because in his own village or neighborhood, they have to get a water tower that is for passing of water, providing water to hydraulic fracturing readily in his neighborhood. And he had filed a lawsuit, and now it's coming to his neighborhood, he realized not, and they want to have it. Of course, he talked about it, we have a lot of traffic in our neighborhood, we don't want it, trucks and all that. But this is about hydraulic fracturing. I'm going to provide you information about this lawsuit that he, along with a bunch of 1%ers have filed against hydraulic fracturing, and also give you a letter from the co-director of Food and Water Watch, who is also the lawyer for Food and Water Watch, which directly responds to the question that was raised about our town, the Somerset and Franklin Township, permission for those mining that are available and allowed. Basically, what he says, that despite the fact that the land use ordinance do not allow fracturing as a permitted use, however, land use restrictions can be avoided in ways that an outright ban cannot. In Franklin Township, the existing or future land use board has the authority to grant a non-permitted use variance for any activity not contemplated by current schedule of permitted land uses upon a request by an applicant. While we do not anticipate such a variance being granted, we believe that the only way to ensure that industry does not bring fracking and all the harm it entails to Franklin Township, it is to ban it, to have a ban instituted. So that's about this, and I'm going to give you information, the copy of this letter from the attorney, and also the ExxonMobil executive filing. Just quickly, again, I want to remind you about the drone, and also say that New Jersey is one of the 6 states in the country. This is a test case for use of drone. So we have to be really alert to this and be proactive and think about it and look at it. I don't know what are the policies. If, for example, the feds can come and talk to our police and say, okay, we want you to use this or that. I don't know if that is happening, but I would like us to be very much aware of what's going on, or what are the limitations, what are the possibilities, and we are getting. It is not, to me, concern about drone as a human rights and peace activist and environmental activist is very crucial, because our safety and the world safety and peace is important to me. The use of drone, not only in our community violating on privacy issues, for example, is also important in the state of the United States, because when drone has grown, especially under President Obama, under President Bush was about 144 drones used, under President Obama is close to 4,000. And many of these drones are not, when they call surgical strikes, they have been killing families in weddings, processions, parties, that they had nothing to do with being terrorists or anything, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, all over the place. And so it's so crucial for us to be proactive, because none of these families whose children have died, even if they loved the United States at the time, they can have terrorists coming out of them, because they see that there's no reason for them to, their life to be so changed. So what I would like to suggest for you to have knowledge about drone is a wonderful book with the active woman, Medea Benjamin, about drone. The name of the book is Drone Warfare, Killing by Remote Control by Medea Benjamin. Thank you. And if I can quickly finish, but you know that there are examples of PTSD among drone operators in the United States that are killing people across the world.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
I'm
Ms.
sorry
Saba.
for taking time, but this is so important.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken would like to speak?
See no one come
Anyone
forward.
else who hasn't spoken would like to speak?
See no one come forward, I motion to close public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now we come to item number 9, council comments. And so, I think starting over here, I always forget. Councilwoman Rosalind Sherman.
Thank you. Going along with the subject of fracking, I brought with me a copy of an article that was in the Home News about someone from Franklin, Elizabeth Nelson, who has been on a 30,000-mile trip in her frackmobile. Those of you who live in Franklin, I'm sure saw it at one point or another with her canoe on the top. And she has made quite an impression on people as she's gone across the country and made people more aware of the dangers of fracking. You can't get it out, the information out there fast enough to enough people. I totally agree with the concept. We only have the one Earth, and we're doing quite a number on it in plenty of ways, and we don't have to add to it with the fracking. So I do want to ask our attorney a question, though. The point brought up about us not making a specific ordinance to ban fracking. I certainly don't want to see someone come around the back door on this. I think it's too important. Is there any reason why we should not issue an ordinance? Would it then cause us a problem?
Well, Highland Park did not make it part of their zoning ordinance, and I think that's probably my recommendation, not to do that. So there actually is, Highland Park cites a state law that's in the environmental law that permits municipalities to ban exploration for natural gas within their municipalities. So my thought is that we should do it that way. You know, the issue of whether or not you can or cannot grant the variance, that's really not my focus. My focus is the concern that we had when we were here 2 weeks ago, who was concerned that our zoning officer had, which is, when you look at our zone scheme, we don't, permitted uses, and we say generally everything that's not permitted is not permitted, essentially. I had to think about what I was saying there, if that makes sense.
What logic?
So, what logic? So, in other words, his concern is that if we started to list things that were prohibited, that we would then open the door for people to say, well, this isn't in the list, this thing that I'm proposing, whatever it is, not fracking, something else, is not in the list of things you prohibited, so therefore, maybe it is permitted. So we're going to stay away from the zoning ordinance completely. I'm just looking now in front of me, the Highland Park ordinance, and I think that's my recommendation as to how we'll go with it.
Okay. Well, hopefully, can we proceed with that and at least put it on the record?
Sure.
With certainly the council will have an opportunity to review it, and we can always comment on it when it comes up on the agenda, but I would like to move that forward.
We're going to effort to get it on for March 11th, so it should be in your packet the week before that.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. I had just one other thing two other things to talk about. One, very sad that our representative in the Congress, Rush Holt, has decided not to run again. He's probably the favorite congressman of more people I know than anybody else. He will be sincerely missed. His input was so valuable to the types of legislation that came through in Washington, and he will be sorely missed. I just hope we have someone who can stand up to the same standards that he has done for the 16 terms, I believe it was, that he has served us in this area. So our loss, but let's hope the next person who comes along will do a good job, or as good a job. That's pretty big shoes. I just wanted to mention two events having to do with the Cultural Arts Council. As you know, we support other groups in the township who are running events, and there is a fundraiser on the 7th of March at the middle school for the people running the Week of the People program. There will be some fine entertainment. The cost will be $7 general admission and $5 for students and seniors, and it will run from 7 to 10 on the 7th of March. So please get out there and support them. On the 30th, the Literary Arts Group of the Cultural Arts Organization will have 2 poetry readings at the library. That's a Sunday. It's March 30th from 1:30 until 3. Daniel Harris and Elizabeth Polito will both be reading poetry, and we usually have excellent attendance for those events, and that is a free event. So please come and join us on the 30th of March. And that's my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman James Fasenella.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. It seems like we're moving along with the fracking issue, and the only thing I'm ask the attorney, you mentioned the ordinance that you're considering putting forward, Mr. Raynaud? The ordinance that you were mentioning.
I'm sorry, the mayor was interrupted.
I know, the mayor had a question for you.
I apologize for him and for me.
I'm guilty. Go ahead.
No problem. I just wanted to, I think I heard you say it was New Brunswick, that you were... Highland Park, that you're going to model a similar ordinance.
What I said was I had in front of me that they cite to a state law which I knew about that allows for the banning of natural gas drilling. So I think that I'd rather go under that. Let's call it a public health and safety law as opposed to a zoning law.
Okay, I understand. And you kind of came to that conclusion, you and Vince, our zoning officer, communicated, like we talked about the last meeting. So this will be the work product we're trying to move forward then?
If you
with
mean,
the fracking
if you
issue?
mean we came to that conclusion together by the fact that I told him that I thought that that's what we should do, yes.
Well, if he's on board and you're on board, and it is, it sounds like the advocates here, well, we're all advocates, but the ones who obviously are very concerned about this, wanted something similar to the Highland Park one. So we'll possibly get this wrapped up, at least what we can do as a community here, of course, having limited influence beyond our borders.
And Councilman, I don't want to suggest that Mr. Dominic's objection wasn't, it's not that he has an opinion on fracking. As a zoning officer, his only concern was the law of unintended consequences.
No, I understand.
It could affect us in a challenge with regard to something we don't even know what it's about. So we'll stay away from the zoning law.
Totally understand. Just wanted to make sure I'm summarizing this correctly. So great. So perhaps that will be concluded next month or soon thereafter. And just to mention, I did see the article that Councilwoman Sherman was talking about, and I know Liz has been here many times in the past. I don't think the last year or so since she's been on the road. But she also was very involved in beekeeping. And although some people may, I don't know, I could consider her a little extreme in her passionate desires with some of these environmental issues, I'll tell you, the things that she had told me about and literally taught me through leading me towards other research with the beekeep and how it's so involved in our agriculture and our farming. Ironically, 2 or 3 months later, I'm seeing it on the national nightly news, and Brian Williams is talking about it, or one of those people, and exactly what she was talking about several months earlier. So, wish her well in her endeavors. And Also, quick reminder that on March 17th, of Monday, we're going to have the state beekeeper come in and do a presentation. Sounds very interesting. I think it's up on our township website, or will be. And that's St. Patrick's Day, easy way to remember it, here in these chambers. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Yeah, I also would like to thank Ms. Linda Powell and Mrs. Saba and Liz Nelson and all of our residents that have come here and provided us with a lot of educational input regarding bans on fracking and the drone. That's a book that I'd like to read. I'm always looking for good books to read, so I wrote that down. So thank you very much for your passion and your input. And I look forward to supporting that ordinance when it comes up for us to vote on it. And I just want to make an announcement. On Saturday, we had a Franklin Youth Initiative Black History Month celebration over at the Senior Community Center. And we had over 22 acts that were participating in celebrating our Black history. There were over 200 people in attendance. The youth had a really nice time. They enjoyed themselves, and it was a great Black History Month celebration. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councilman James.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The only thing I forgot, I just want to mention, send or thoughts of prayer to Councilman Prasad, who I believe is recuperating and back from a medical leave procedure last couple of weeks, and should be back next council meeting. Talked about it last council meeting. I want for everybody who's watching the meeting, we wish him well, and hopefully he'll be back in our next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Ted Chase.
Trying to think where to begin. I was going to say that the Environmental Commission is sponsoring the state apiarist for a talk here on March 17th in this room at 7 p.m., but Councilman Vasanella got ahead of me. I have to say that I'm not happy that our conservation ordinance is once again not on the agenda for tonight. I do hope that Mr. Raynone will have a chance to review it even before he prepares an ordinance on fracking, since I've been working on this water conservation ordinance for over 4 years now. I'm just happy to hear what he had to say about a basis for an ordinance against fracking, because one of my questions was whether the state legislature actually authorized us to pass such an ordinance, since there are things that township councils cannot do because the state legislature has not authorized them to do them, and until the legislature passes, for instance, a bill on non-contiguous clustering, we're not supposed to do it, and now they have. A couple more points about fracking. One, of course, is that it uses huge amounts of water, as shown in the handout from Ms. Saba with the water tower, and we really need to be conserving water, and it would be terrible to find that households were without water because it was all going to fracking. And another point about fracking is that natural gas from fracking contains significant amounts of radon gas, which of course is radioactive. In fact, is a significant threat to public health in the eastern United States. It's something everybody should have their basement tested to see whether it's accumulating radon. But if it comes up in natural gas, and that natural gas goes straight to consumers within a few days of being brought from the ground, the amount of radon, even though it has a fairly short half-life, the amount of radon in the natural gas may be a health concern. I haven't seen a quantitation of this hazard, but it is something to be considered along with the other negative aspects of fracking. I think that's everything. I had a report ready to give on the last meeting of the Public Works Committee, but we don't have committee reports on the agenda for tonight, so I guess I'll hold it for the next meeting.
Thank you.
If I can, Councilman, I
Reno?
have reviewed the water conservation ordinance. I mean, the question that came up this week is whether or not I had, and I in fact have. So I'm not sure how council to put it on their agenda for a discussion item, and we can discuss. But when I was asked 2 weeks ago, I certainly have. So I'm prepared to talk about it whenever council's prepared to put it on the agenda for discussion, or however they want to put it on the agenda.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, Councilman Wright was distracting.
So why was it removed? Why
Okay.
wasn't it on this agenda? I guess, I guess that's not a question for you. You don't make the agenda. That's a general question.
Because
Okay.
the comments were not incorporated into it. As the attorney implied, there's probably some items of discussion about what to put in the ordinance. There's comments
Oh,
or
okay.
discussion.
Okay.
We don't usually get comments from the attorney accompanying a proposed ordinance.
Okay. If you want to
I don't
answer that, go
care.
ahead.
You want to put it on the way you submitted it, go ahead.
Well,
I don't care.
I would think that
So I'll
either
take myself
Mr.
out of
Raynon
this
would say it's fine as submitted, or he might suggest some changes, and we would put on an amended version. But this is, versions of this ordinance have been introduced twice before, including over 4 years ago.
So I suggest, what we did with the Hamilton Street, where we were talking about whether we added a sunshine clause was going to, as a comment, was going to force it to be reintroduced instead of voting on a second time. My suggestion would be, is to meet with the attorney, discuss the comments to ensure that it's still the type of ordinance that you want to get in, since you were most personally involved in this. Because otherwise, there may be a lot of discussion coming out of that, will then yet force it to be reintroduced. But if you're not interested in the comments, then have it submitted and take your chances with it on the first reading.
Councilman, can I make a suggestion, maybe, because, just so we can move it forward? I have some questions with regards to structure, but most of my questions are kind of policy questions, and I don't know, I actually thought that what we were going to do is, when the ordinance was sent to me, it would be put on for council discussion, we would talk about it and then move it along. That would be my suggestion. We could also put it on for introduction and have the discussion about it at that point in time. So that was I haven't seen any staff comments on it, so I don't really know, maybe that they already went over the things that I would go over, but that was just my thought. I mean, other than that, I'm happy to have a conversation with you offline, Councilman Chase, about the parts of it that I highlighted and I had questions about, and then we could move it forward. Either way, it doesn't, I don't, council decides what process you want to follow.
So you mean you had comments, but they haven't been passed on to us?
Yes, I was asked to review it. It went on the agenda. I assumed we would talk about it tonight, but it's not on the agenda. I'm prepared whenever, I mean, I was just asked to review it, so I mean,
Okay, so maybe you want to, we'll take over this, take it on in the next couple weeks and figure out what our structure is. Is that okay?
at the very least, it's got to get on the council agenda for at least discussion, so we could have a discussion about those things, right? And then move it to, or get introduced, however you want to do it, doesn't really matter to me.
Might I suggest tomorrow night, there's a land use meeting, you're on land use, that whatever draft can be brought to land use, you can certainly look it over. And if you have any questions if you think it should go to council discussion, it can go that way. Otherwise, it could go for directly to an introduction, or you have that discussion. this has been your baby, and
No.
I'm willing to follow your lead on which way it should go.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Well, the Land Use Committee can discuss it. If Lou, if you can send us the members of the committee your comments by, sometime tomorrow, since we're supposed to meet tomorrow night.
He's getting on a plane at 6
At 6
in the
o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
So, I mean, like I said, I'm happy to give you a call and let you, I didn't, I apologize, I didn't know that council wanted me.
But
The question was, before it was introduced, had I read it yet, and I haven't. I've now read it, I understand it, I was prepared to discuss it. I thought it was going to be on for tonight, so came here ready to go.
Did you have your comments written already?
No, I didn't write them. If you
Oh.
want me to do a memo, I'll do that, but I was just going to, I went through it, I had some questions, and that was it.
So, Mayor, how about if, I don't know what Mr. Raynone's schedule is, but it sounds like him and Councilman Chase should confer. We can discuss it tomorrow night in land use, but if they can confer over the next, between now and the next meeting, and then let it be their call whether or not to list it as introduction or to list it for discussion. One way or the other, it shows up on the next agenda, and I trust that Dr. Chase and Lou, our attorney, will come to a consensus to get it on for the next meeting.
Yeah, and of course,
Can we just do that and move on with this?
Yeah, sure, and of course, I was going to say the manager is in on that mix and how much.
Oh, of course, the manager, and you always know what's on the agenda, Mayor, you and the deputy mayor, but as far as, it sounds like Dr. Chase and Lou need to communicate and
Yeah, we'll work it out.
get it on some format.
Freeze, almost irrelevant. We'll
All
work it
right,
out.
great, I just want to
Okay, thank you. No,
move forward.
so Councilman Phil Kramer.
I think I will join the fracking bad team and the
Fracking is
water
bad.
conservation good team, and leave it at that. Don't take my minimal comments as not being enthusiastic about it, just no need to repeat. Canal Road, I've received many email and comment about Canal Road's potholes, especially a mile and a half south of Griggstown. And yes, Mrs. Kramer, we have a plan to fix it. My wife takes that every day, so I hear about it. And I heard about it from several others, and I asked the manager to have the Public Works cruise Canal Road and fix all that we can, and actually also to keep track of all of our pothole fixes, and so that can be useful in our Public Works discussions later on. The last item was, I'm just going to slightly touch on our budget hearings, and I just wanted everyone to know that in an idea of saving money, the mayor and I will be going to the library board meeting tomorrow with an idea of shared services that could hopefully save the taxpayers a bundle of money. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Carl Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello to everyone out there. I apologize for my scattered notes because I left all my notes at the funeral home, so, I know, dead as it is, I'm sorry. Couple things. The Housing Authority, I missed the meeting, but I will have the minutes at our next meeting to update you on. On the redevelopment side, we swore in Mr. Ike Agadosi, who replaced a member on the team who left for personal reasons. We're glad to have him on the board. RPM, Leewood, and the ReDev all gave us updates as to the building, the renting, and the selling of their units. Leewood has townhouses for sale. ReDev, which is building townhouses for sale off of Route 27, and RPM that are building low, moderate, and high-income buildings, rental units, I should say. They're all proceeding nicely. Under public discussion, Mr. Norton, who lives on Fuller Street, asked about RPM because RPM, that particular block is in their redevelopment area. And what he asked was that because RPM didn't show that block being used by them, if there was possible that that block could be removed from that redevelopment area. Now, next month, we'll have an answer to that because we'll see them before the next meeting, RPM, and we'll discuss that with them. So that part is there. Hamilton Street. All of you may remember Hamilton Street because we had a big discussion up here on Hamilton Street. I believe, and I'm going to look down to Township Manager on this one, that the letters are going out, they're available to go out.
I believe a draft of that form to go out to solicit interest in the advisory board was distributed to the committee members, and I've spoken with Mr. Dominack, and his intention is to mail what could be mailed and then walk the walk on Hamilton Street to distribute beginning next week, weather permitting. So that effort has begun.
And the reason why I wanted him to give us that update is that a lot of my council members wanted to put a sunset clause on this one. If it wasn't moving along, December would have been the month to do all this kind of good stuff. And I might be wrong, but Township Manager will correct me. We're already into March. And we're talking about putting those letters out first week of March, which means that sometime during the month of March, we, the Township Council, have to go through all of that stuff to pick out people to serve on the board. Then, once that board is constituted, then come up with the agenda, how we want to move forward, how we want to do all this kind of good stuff. So now we're into April. So I just want everyone to realize that everyone was rushing to the sunset clause, rushing to December, and we're already going to be, what, Township, 4 months into it, 3.5 months into it?
4 months into 2014 is a fair statement.
Okay, so I just want everybody to know, especially those that live in the 4th Ward, I'm still with you. On the Recreation Advisory Committee, we're sending to Land Use tomorrow with Councilman Chase. I don't see Councilman Prasad, he must be out, then Councilman Vasanella. One of the items that will be up for discussion will be the sponsorship at the recreation fields. If we can do it, how we can do it, those are various of nature of how we can get the sponsorship going over there. And also the recreation needs assessment. I think Councilman Vasanella wanted a quick update as to how things were going and moving because he wasn't with us last year. So we're going to give him that update this year and discuss those various items. Mr. Mayor, that's a quick update. I'm sorry for being late, but duty called.
No, excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Now we're going to have a quick comment from Councilman Rajiv Prasad through Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Yeah, Councilman Prasad sent us all an email earlier today, and so since you mentioned that he couldn't be here, he specifically asked if one of us could report on the Human Relations Commission Board of Education resolution that they passed, and will be attending the BOE upcoming meeting. So I will read the resolution that was passed, and it reads, by the Human Relations Commission, and our Councilman Prasad sits on that Human Relations Commission. If he had been here, he would have reported out on this, so I'm doing this on his behalf. So the resolution says from the HRC, to the Franklin Township Board of Education, as chairman of the Franklin Township Human Relations Commission, I have been requested by the commission to pass a resolution set forth below, which was passed unanimously after detailed discussion by our commissioners. I would kindly expect that this resolution is read by the Board of Education President at the meeting this Thursday. I trust the passed resolution is taken in serious consideration by the members of the board. And the resolution says, in support of the paraprofessionals currently working in Franklin Township School District, the Human Relations Commission petitions the Board of Education to reject any privatization of these dedicated educators. And that's the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Now, comment from our manager, Mr. Robert Vornlocker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to bring to the attention of council and also anyone in the audience or watching on TV, the New Jersey Department of Transportation, which is the responsible agency for bridges over the Delaware and Raritan Canal, will be conducting repairs of the bridge on Weston Canal Road at the Manville Causeway, in all likelihood beginning in the second week of March. This is a long-term closure of the bridge that will require the replacement of that bridge. It's anticipated that that work will continue through to July of this year, so approximately a 3 to 4 month closure. It will be a full closure. That bridge will not be available to any vehicular traffic during the time of construction, and the detours which will be in place have been approved by Somerset County, as Weston Canal Road is a Somerset County road. Our Traffic Bureau has been involved with the planning of this, as well as our engineering department, and it looks as if that's a go, weather permitting, second week of March. Yes, Councilman Chase.
Will it also be closed to pedestrian traffic? Because there's the parking lot right there on the old road, which makes it a good point of access to the canal towpath, but you have to cross that bridge to get to the towpath.
And the answer to that is yes, the bridge is being completely removed. So there will be no bridge whatsoever there, and so that means that access to the towpath will not be able to be made from the parking area on what would be the east side of the canal.
And when the bridge is reconstructed, will the deck be wooden as it is in Griggstown and at Route 518 and at Blackwell's Mills, or will it be paved over as the present bridge is?
The paving of that bridge was done back in the 1980s due to the fact that the realignment of Weston Canal Road had taken place, and it caused a number of accidents on the wood decking that had previously been there before the paving. As part of this project, Somerset County has taken a very hardline approach to this and told the Department of Transportation that it must be an asphalt deck and not a timber deck for safety purposes, and they actually told the state that they would not issue permits for the construction on their road until the state conceded that, and it's my understanding that the state has.
So, the duration of this, I'm concerned about when Amwell Road's bridge, which is...
These projects are tied to each other, so Amwell Road's bridge cannot be replaced until the Manville Bridge is replaced.
Certainly, but at one point, you and I had a discussion that they would do work beforehand, and then the actual removal and placement of the bridge would occur over a period of 4 days. So that's no longer...
There was discussion about a prefabricated bridge. However, it doesn't appear that they're moving forward with that plan. They're going to close the road for the duration of the 4 months for construction. I'm going to say at this point, there has not been a final decision on the Amwell Road Bridge, and that still is a possibility for Amwell Road.
So please keep
We
us up.
continue to do that, and I will continue to keep you updated. Obviously, the volume of traffic that goes over both of these bridges is great, but the Amwell Road Bridge carries much more traffic than the Manville Causeway Bridge does.
So when there are future meetings, please advise
I'll
me
continue.
beforehand, and maybe I can make them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bob, just to follow
Yes.
up on that, so why is the Amwell Bridge being replaced? It's a relatively new bridge.
The canal bridge, as both canal bridges have issues with the superstructure that supports these bridges, and the state has deemed them in need of replacement. The bridge engineers make the call on that, and these bridges were inspected and
No,
found to be
This is the
substandard.
canal bridge,
Canal bridge,
not the
not
one
the river
over the
bridge.
Raritan River, I mean, the Millstone River.
Right.
So it was actually right around the time I moved into town 15 years ago, that the one over the Millstone River was repaired or replaced, but there's a little bridge, you may not even notice it as you're crossing the canal, right after that house that you have to swerve around. That little bridge is going to be replaced.
Both the bridges over the Manville Causeway and the Amwell Road Causeway are wooden superstructures and being replaced with steel so that they can carry the weight that is currently going over those bridges on a daily basis. As Councilman Kramer said, the bridges over the Millstone River in both locations were replaced over the last 15 or so years with modern bridge construction.
And then one other question, those big pipes that are on the Amwell Road, they carry what?
They carry water.
Okay, good. Better answer than the other thing. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Brian Regan.
I have no further comments
Okay, thank you.
to move this along.
And I don't have any comments either. So I'll go on. Next, we come to item number 10 on our agenda, our IT strategic plan update. And we have Dr. Sharon Tufts, I believe from the great state of North Carolina. So if you want to introduce yourself, or unless Mr. Heim wants to go first.
So just a brief kind of introduction on where we're at, and then I'll turn this over to Dr. Tufts. With probably late summer, we started this process as an update to our 3-year strategic plan, which had carried us about 3.5, almost 4 years to get through the bulk of it. So we endeavored in another strategic planning update with Dr. Tufts again. I just wanted to take a brief moment to thank Council for their support in this project and this process over the last couple of years. It has been invaluable in helping us kind of steer the limited IT dollars that we have to make sure that we're investing it strategically and in the right possible way. It also provides a really good gauge for me and my department in how we're performing as an internal customer service department. So I just wanted to take a moment to say, thank you for your support and many of your participations in that process. Dr. Tufts is going to go through the results basically of the plan, and I'll turn it over to her.
So again, thank you for having me back. I think this is my second time before all of you, and I've met with most of you over the last several years talking about what's going on here from an IT standpoint. Just to give you a little bit, I'll just enter.
Wait, give us just so everyone knows your name, your background.
Oh, absolutely. I'm Shannon Tufts. I'm a professor at UNC Chapel Hill, and I specialize in public sector information technology. My PhD is in public administration with a concentration in information systems. So I'm a government geek.
Excellent.
Actually, that's the best way to describe me. And I've been at UNC for the last 14 years of a long tenure of working with local governments and particularly trying to help them understand how to do strategic IT investment. This is just a chart to show you, and it actually was in the plan at some level, I believe, sort of the value progression that we see with IT investments. And I could take you back years ago in the township and really map you on this process where IT really starts out as utility service, just like any other utility function that you have, sewer, water, electricity. And we have to maintain that utility service. If the network doesn't work, nothing works, and I think we see this more and more over time. And then we work our way up into internal efficiency and effectiveness, and I would say when we got here and when I started working here with the first plan, we probably really were at a place where utility services were functioning. I think we can clearly say that, and we were working on internal efficiency and effectiveness. And then you move into a place where you're really externally focused. So IT isn't working just internally on IT issues. They're also starting to become part of other departments and help the other departments really drive their decision making. When I had meetings with some of the council members, there was a lot of discussion about how IT can be leveraged to do community work. And so that was one of the things that we saw happening over this last process of updating the plan, and then ultimately move into that change agent and driver of innovation. I think probably the most exciting thing that I can tell you about this plan is that Franklin Township has done a phenomenal job. I don't know that I've ever had a town or a county that I've worked with actually map out and do almost everything that was on the plan. And if it wasn't done, it was typically because it was no longer the right investment to be made. So to see the progress has been sort of phenomenal. I was all excited. I had to give you a star at some level, and particularly Justin and the manager, because what we've seen, and you'll see this in the data when I show it to you, the transition from IT being the no department to IT really being part of the business decision-making for all the departments has been phenomenal, and I think you should really be proud of the work that's being done here, particularly for taxpayers. To see that that kind of savings can start happening is really important, and I know what's being proposed in other areas is certainly going to be part of that discussion. So the major findings, I wanted just to share some of the charts with you so that you can see this. This is the satisfaction rate with the technology change in the township itself. And this was the most staggering number. In just 3 years, you saw an increase from 47% of the staff here felt like the township was doing a good job to 77%. And that is just an incredible testament to the amount of work that's being done with what I will still tell you is probably an under-resourced, underfunded department. I mean, I consistently say that. I don't know that you can ever have enough money or enough IT people, quite frankly. So I'm a little biased in that space. But this was really interesting to see this level of change happening. We also saw an 11% increase, or a 12% increase in satisfaction for the vision for the township. I think one of the things that I will say has been really interesting in meeting with the various department heads and the staff over the last several months and doing this update, to see even people who perhaps were less excited about IT or had conflict with the IT department, to see them come full circle and see that IT was an asset to them. It also meant that the IT department had really taken to heart some of the recommendations about customer service focus, better communication skills, et cetera, and I think you'll see this reflected as we go along. But really, there's been a wonderful increase in the way that the township is viewing technology and using technology. There was a slight increase, and the reason it's not up there, it was a fairly slight increase, a couple of percent, in helping meet their technology needs. You already had a fairly satisfied population. The township employees felt like they were getting good technology put in their hands. So really what we saw increase was the amount of communication, the amount of problem solving that happened with IT at the table versus IT just coming and fixing, network cables or printers that were broken and things like that. IT listening to the needs of the departments and then providing that action plan. This is where I call this the holy grail of IT, is where you can actually see a tracking of this is what IT is doing, this is how it makes a difference in my life, and I will be able to see an increase and improvement in this work. So what we actually saw was a 13% increase in satisfaction ratings by the various department and staff. So this was a survey done for all employees, and they participated really heavily, actually, in this process. Satisfied with the leadership and the direction that's provided by IT. Again, tremendous numbers. When we look at this data, you're higher than most jurisdictions now in almost every one of these spaces. So key findings, I think the hallmark of all of this is there has been two things that have really made a difference. Number one, there's been an increased focus on customer service from the IT department. I think that has made a huge difference in the relationships with the departments, in the kind of customer service that the departments then are able to provide to the citizens. I also think the management support for IT has been a substantial value, and really thinking about how to strategically use technology and improve the types of investments. I mean, I think, I will say, the manager and I had a conversation, and he said, if we spend money on this, we are going to figure out how to make sure that it works and it works right, and we're going to be committed to doing this. And I think that type of approach has been really useful. Lots of places that I go, it's a slightly different approach where departments are just sort of, they buy software and it sits on the shelf because change is uncomfortable, and we understand that, so we try not to have that happen. Offer a lot of online services to the citizenry. I just reviewed the website over the last 2 days. That change is phenomenal. If you haven't had a chance to look at the township website, I think all of you have. It's a wonderful change. It's a wonderful resource. It's really interesting to see the amount of data that's out there available to the citizens now. Have they received the budget request? Okay, so budget requests are coming next week. Okay, so you've seen some sort of preview of this. I do think that in order to keep the pace that you're looking at right now, there is a need for additional staffing. And you can ask Justin any questions about that instead of me. I mean, I can tell you what my thoughts are on it. But also increasing the IT expenditure to 3 to 5% of the general fund budget is typically. The budget is unbelievably small for the amount of work done here, and I think that's a wonderful testament. I think that some of the strategies that you're already pursuing about shared services is going to help with some of those budget issues and also provide better services to the citizens. And so that's a really excellent approach. I do want to highlight some of the accomplishments that have happened already. So as you're thinking about what's been done in 3 years, to put a list together of all the projects, I mean, I could have spent days putting all the projects out there that they've done in 3 years, but you see this new website. You've moved to a voice over IP telephone system, which is obviously a superior system to traditional landlines, lower cost, et cetera. You have email archiving in place, which is a blessing and a curse at times, depending on which way you want to look at it. But it's a really important resource for public records retention purposes and providing data that goes back for the organization. You now allow online payments. You have a time and attendance system in place. Paperless agendas are in place. A centralized backup system. I cannot stress how important this actually is for the organization to have a place where the data is stored so that if a glitch happens, which it will happen at some point, you have a repository that you can then restore from. Again, senior management support and involvement has been really important. Migration of a financial system, that alone could have taken 5 years in some organizations. It was done very, very quickly and very efficiently. Imaging system for the operating system improves efficiency for all employees. A storage area network, again, for storing data and documents on the network itself. And then policies and procedures improvements have been made based on really tracking from that plan that was done 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and seeing them implement all of these recommendations. I think almost every one of these was a recommendation that came out, and they just knocked them all out very, very quickly. So thinking about what kind of investments should be made moving forward, I did something a little different this time from the last plan. So I tried to come up with goals that I thought were good community-based goals. And some of them are driven by comments that I heard you make in various settings. So I just put together some thoughts around what are some common goals we like to see in government. You know, community network of basic human services and infrastructure that protects and promotes the well-being of citizens. And going on about interactive and transparent government, economic development and planning policies that are balanced and local economy, but also diversity and sustainable growth, et cetera. Investing in quality township facilities, a diverse workforce, et cetera. Preserving and protecting the natural environment, which you've already heard about today, along with clean water, clean air, and wildlife. And then finally, promoting this lifelong learning, right, that champions diversity and education at all levels, libraries, parks, recreational programs. So I laid out sort of goals that I thought were fairly reasonable for any government to actually operate from. And then we have priority levels. So the projects are mapped against the goals and the priorities. So priority level 1 should be done within the next year or so. Priority level 2 is within the next 2 years. Priority level 3 is really to be assessed at probably year 1.5 to year 2 to see if it still makes sense. So those are the longest range goals that we have. So this is just a quick summary of, I divided up the results into 2 different areas. One is sort of external facing, citizen engagement, relationship management, because I think that that's something that we didn't do last time, and it really does allow a different approach to thinking about the work that's being done that is technology-enabled work, not necessarily just IT projects. And so when we think about that technology-enabled work, more field-based applications, inspections, iPads in the field, et cetera. So what goals those help hit, I realize it's hard to refer back to those goals, but this is just give you an overview. Increased usage of the technologies that you already have in place. One of those is the spatial data logic, so using that to do more, working with the vendor more regularly to get those improvements in place. We've already seen an increase in the use of spatial data logics. That was a very substantial financial investment in this community. I think is paying off, in my opinion, just looking at it from the outside. Live streaming of council meetings, increased social media use. I actually was speaking yesterday in Princeton to somebody about this, and it's fascinating. 1 out of every 9 people in the world, so including children, the population, the entire world population, 1 out of 9 people in the world has a smartphone. So when you back out children, and then you back out areas where phones just are not very common, you think about the impact of mobile technologies. That means most of our residents have mobile technologies. 200 million Facebook users are only on their smartphones. They don't even have computers in their houses. So we think about that. It's actually a very effective way to reach out to historically disenfranchised communities. and get data to them. Shared services is obviously a hot topic. I know you've been working heavily on this. Increasing asset and inventory management system. I was actually speaking about this today to another group with thinking about using GIS, which you have a really useful GIS system now, but how do we take that and really tag different items, make sure that we have a good inventory system, make sure that when we go out to a water main break that we know exactly what type of water main it is, what type of pipe it is, what we have in place do we need a Fernco coupling or do we need, something else to fix that issue, what kind of valves we have. So an inventory and asset management system that also ties into a work order system is useful. Priority level 2, so there's 2-year out pieces, and actually the mobile app may come faster with the new website, so that we could just go ahead and check that one off. The mobile app's already there. Increasing camera presence, and I know I spent time, I'm trying to think which of the council members actually spent time with talking about more cameras in the, I think so, in the regions where there was some interest from the downtown development groups or some neighborhood groups, and having more cameras for public surveillance purposes so that law enforcement can do more surveillance, greater wireless availability for stimulating economic development and growth. Public comment via technology, that might be something you're interested in, and you need to think about what that actually means. One of the things I would caution is that recognizing that sometimes passion can be measured by people coming into a council meeting versus whether they can watch it online and then send you and type you a comment via electronic means. You may get more engagement, but it might not be as impassioned engagement, so there's some drawbacks to that. Looking at a township dashboard so that you can see the projects. We've talked a lot about snow plows. When is the plow coming? When will my street be cleared so that I can get out and go to the grocery store? So those types of technologies would also be really useful. Internally, the list is a little longer and probably much less interesting, so I'm going to hit it very, very quickly. But IT staff levels obviously would be part of that. IT Governance Council at the end of the report, I recommended this last time as well. It's a way to manage the investments that are being made and set priorities with some level of council involvement, which you already have on the IT steering committee. Requiring the use of technology, I think that's being done in greater levels here in this township, where the management has said, we've invested, we will use it, we're not going to waste taxpayer dollars. More training for township staff, they're very interested in having more training. And they'd really like the IT department to do the training for them. With the current levels of staffing, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Shared accountability and authority is already working in place because of the management relationship and involvement. Involving a town-wide intranet. I know that when I talked to the HR director, that was something that she was really interested in, so that there's forms, health insurance information, the FMLA forms, et cetera, are all available to the staff. Server virtualization is pretty simple, but it's really a way to consolidate servers. Mobile device management. I personally actually think about this every day because I use my own personal smartphone for work purposes. And what does that mean? It's great because the university doesn't have to pay for my cell phone bill. I pay for it because it's my personal phone, and I choose to have my email on that personal phone. But there could be student records that I'm downloading onto my personal smartphone. What happens when I lose it? The university then is responsible for a FERPA violation, which is a federal law around educational records and privacy. And so in some ways, as we think about these technologies coming into the organization, we need to have a way to put a management system on that technology so that in the event that it's lost or stolen, you can wipe the data off of it. And not all data, you can actually partition the data so it would only be township data that got wiped. Document imaging needs to be continued and improved. Priority level 2. These are just some staffing areas where it might be useful. I'm going to quickly look and see if there's anything that might strike me as needing to be talked about. I think performance metrics might be one that you want to see some level of focus on. There's a huge push around the country to do more performance management and performance-based management for different departments. So looking at those metrics, I think, would be a useful process. And then finally, GIS is becoming a unique opportunity, particularly here in the township, as you've had a promotion for somebody that was managing the GIS and has done a wonderful job thinking about whether GIS should be located as where it's at now, which is within the engineering department, versus whether it becomes really a function of the IT department serving greater needs, making sure that police and residents, et cetera, have access to the data that comes out of the GIS is a really important focus area for most governments right now. anybody have questions? I can go back into some of these areas. I just want to see if there's any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
On your one slide for the business relationship manager, what was that?
So a business relationship manager, actually, they've already implemented it in a small way. And so what that would actually do, like Krista is now working very heavily on the SDL product, right? And she's become an expert. So a business relationship manager would really get to know the business practices of a given department and make sure that the IT is fitting their needs in that department, and how can the technology be customized to make sure that it works, or how can the process in the business be changed to meet the technology depending on the type of technology it is. So it's really allowing IT to have a face into every department, but also a level of understanding of how the departments work. I know Justin's done ride-alongs with the police department, and that's an important process to have that relationship with the business so that you actually understand the way that they operate and can
Okay.
provide better customer service.
Yeah, I was wondering how that fit into IT. Okay.
Yep, that's it.
All right, thanks.
Are there any issues that you have or you foresee? We have a relatively small IT department, but our IT department covers not only here, but the police. So there's a potential security issue in that you have, well, for instance, Justin, who I trust greatly, has incredible access. Does that bother you in any way? I mean, I'll personally, it doesn't bother me, but I'm just wondering if there are other safeguards we need.
Absolutely. I think in the case, and I'm asking a question actually of Justin now, because in the case of criminal justice data, there are FBI standards that are delivered down, and they're called CJIS standards, so it's the FBI's criminal justice information standards requirements that they have. If an IT department for a municipality or a county is servicing the police department, the only thing that actually has to exist is basically a memorandum of understanding that establishes that relationship, and it's not even a contractual relationship, right? You're not paying for that service, but it establishes that relationship, provides some protections. He has to have a background check that's done by the police department, and that meets the highest standards required by the FBI for what is probably the most protected data you can get, which is criminal justice data, including juvenile records, et cetera.
So, yeah, and we have done that. And actually, every time a new manager comes in, because the manager is the head of the government, when Mr. Vornlocker became our manager, he signed a new management control agreement between him and Chief Roberts, just to formalize that process. And myself, not only myself, but all my staff have gone through the same level of background that really a police officer does. And I'm looking to the manager again, because he was a lieutenant at the time that mine was done. So, that's what we do practically.
So if we were to expand to other branches of government, I mean, to save citizens, taxpayers' money, the school board might, and that's a big nut, that's a huge nut, but merging our departments, is that an issue to you?
I don't see that as being an issue. I mean, you'd have to learn some of the laws, like the FERPA requirements are quite unique in the educational space. But to me, it's no different than meeting the requirements for HIPAA compliance. If all of a sudden he has access to personally identifiable health information, which probably could have access to at some level, if I think about some of the services that could be provided or that are provided by the township. In most jurisdictions across the country, they actually do provide some level of service, maybe not to the school system. School systems, well, Woodbridge actually they have a combined school system and municipal IT department. In North Carolina, almost invariably, all the libraries are covered by the municipal IT department. Authorities, even airport authorities might be covered by the municipality. So it's not uncommon to have that.
So then going one step farther, because I do have a lot of faith in Justin, and he's had quite a bit of education and certification. He's certified and highly certified.
Certification.
Thank you. Those big words, more than two syllables.
Yeah, Justin is certainly certifiable. I don't think there's any argument about that.
What about merging or having basically shopping out our IT staff to other municipalities? Is that kind of thing done? And
It is done. It's not done as often, but actually I can cite one example from North Carolina because it's where I live. The county and the town actually share an IT department. The county provides all of the IT services to the town then provides, and it's actually the county seat, they provide the funding for, I want to say they pay $30 or $40 or $50,000 a year for that IT service. And that's just for staffing services. I'm not talking about their computers and the networks and those kinds of pieces, which are also part of a separate bill that they buy those goods from the town or from the county, but just the IT services. The only caution I would have is that you would want to increase your staff size.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
as a revenue stream, yes,
Right.
absolutely.
But that's a business and decision and a business model, and
Right.
actually increasing our revenue greater than our expenditures, yet saving other townships money at the same time.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have one more
Councilman
question.
Francois?
So we keep hearing about increased staffing, and as an IT professional myself,
Sure.
I know that there are several components of providing IT services. And as a project manager, I see you have a lot of projects that we should embark on, priority 1, priority 2, based on the goals and objectives. But what I can't get my arms around, there's the project work, and then there's the keeping the lights on.
Absolutely.
So I need to understand, in terms of your staffing recommendations, are you asking for additional staffing for new project work or also for keeping the lights on? If you can break that down for me a little bit.
Do you want
a
to?
better understanding of, maintenance mode, tier support, back-end support, type of stuff.
So some of this was briefed at Financial Oversight last week in regard to my budget requests. The immediate need, and I'll talk more about this during the budget hearings, but the immediate need right now is really related to keeping the lights on.
Okay.
In the past year alone, we've seen a 50% increase in our ticket workload. And that's a direct result of all of these projects that we've accomplished and we've gone through, but there's always that relationship where the more technology growth that we see and the more investment that we put into technology, we need a little bit more in the IT department to, like you said, keep the lights on. So we're at that point now where I have to come to you and say, we've been on this technology growth spurt, for lack of a better term, we need a little support to help maintain that. So that's where we're at, and that's what I'm looking to. It also will enable us to continue the growth rate by freeing me up to not have to run and fix a workstation. I can continue to work on project management and do the things that I'm paid to do and not spread myself amongst multiple. And same thing with Krista. Krista I use as a PM and as a business relationship manager, but I can't do that if I need her to go be level 2 help desk. So there's that balance there. So that's my primary request is going to be related to definitely keeping the lights on but also it has impact obviously as kind of a shockwave.
So you're seeing a strong learning curve as far as the stuff that you're rolling out and the need for more user support?
Yeah, and there's more users. I mean, in rolling out the time and attendance system alone, I pick up 40 users at Public Works. A laborer or a truck driver at Public Works really had very little interaction with the IT department prior to that, but now all of their overtime slips are electronic, all their time off slips are electronic, their punch in, their punch out. It's a touchscreen computer. That's a whole new area for us that we have never gotten into before that now we have to. And it's the right thing to do, but there's impact to that.
Yeah.
And so, and typically in prior years, just to give you a gauge, we typically saw about a 10% increase year over year in ticket workload. This past year from 2012 to 2013, it jumped to 50%. So that's a huge spike for me, and I know that's a direct relationship to all the systems that we've put in, our electronic security systems and all these different things that we have done do have an impact in the workload of the IT department. So
you're looking at more help desk type support?
Yep.
Increase in staffing?
Particularly, there'll be a request for a part-time help desk.
Okay.
And again, there's more detail coming to you in the budget request. I don't want to.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
And just to make a comment about that, don't see help desk ticket increases as a negative thing. That's one of my concerns, that when people hear, help desk numbers went up, that they think that means things are broken. I actually look at it, and particularly in the case of Justin's program and the projects that are about, they trust IT more now because they're actually coming to IT with help desk requests. So that's actually a positive.
And we're adding new
And you're adding new functionality.
Yeah, right.
In many ways.
User knowledge growth. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Chase?
Well, I was just thinking, if you're adding projects, adding new functions, I would expect an increase in help desk requests. Indeed, one would expect that new functions would require a greater number of requests per user than the routine things that people are used to. So I will say about your report, you made much of some fairly small increases in percent approval, which you report down to 0.1%, and then I look at the appendices, and how many people are you asking? About 40, so a 3.5% increase means one or two more positive responses. I wouldn't statistically make much of that. Now, when you go from 65 to 85, that certainly is significant.
I believe it was sent to all the staff that had email access that just chose not to participate.
Which is normal.
Well, yeah, survey overload.
Okay, Councilman Basanella?
So I guess I'm approaching this from a little different way. Not suggesting there isn't these needs, whether they're just to keep the bare bones things functioning or get involved in some of these bigger projects. But throughout the few years of this, and especially a lot that you're putting out here, I'm hearing about time saved in the field, whether it's inspections, perhaps fire prevention. I don't want to go down the whole list, but a lot of these technologies were supposed to bring savings, whether it's in time, less time needed by employees in different departments, certain things that were being done in different departments now are being done through the old IT magic. So to me, what I would be looking to reinvest or invest is the savings, not to put more money. In other words, keep the budget flat as possible. Obviously, it's going to probably go up a few percent. We'll see what financial oversight brings us. But I'd like to see, and I'm not saying it's your job or Justin's job, the manager I'm sure will chime in. I don't personally want to hear about what is needed, how much we have to spend for another employee, et cetera, unless it's paralleled with where that money is being saved and then where we pick it out from, whether we could charge it back to water because it's truly saving water time, whether you get one inspector less, not saying we want to lay anybody off, don't get me wrong, but we don't have to fill a position because someone retires because of these savings. So to me, unless I see the correlation, I'd like to see us saving more than we need to reinvest, but obviously maybe the first year or two that's the other way around. But so I'm approaching it from at least a different position than I've heard. I haven't heard any of that coming from here or any of the other council right now, but that's what I would want to see going forward. So you don't have to get all into it now, because I know we want to move on with the meeting, but that's, to me, still an open book.
Deputy Mayor Regan?
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm ready to move on.
Okay.
No, I think so, for all the council people, right, this isn't a budget hearing, this isn't, the in-depth stuff, this is very high level, relative to what was presented here, so the questions about adding staff and what it brings and adds is the conversation we get into when we have our budget hearings.
Yeah, and just want to clear, that's why I wasn't expecting now, but personally, I don't know, hoping financial oversight's kind of going at it from that angle too, but if not, I guess
I'm
I would.
sure Justin will attest to the fact that he was questioned quite heavily about his requests.
So if we could, when the time comes in that process, if all of council could get any of that type of data or correlation between, with budgets going forward.
And that's a good point. We'll get that at the budget hearings. We don't have to.
I'll be prepared to talk about that.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Professor Tufts, are you finished?
I think so.
Okay. Appreciate you coming our way and helping us again.
I think I bring the snow
Thank
every
you.
time I come.
Okay.
Every time I've been here, it snowed. It's in August.
Well, no, in
August it was nice.
Here and it was quite warm.
That's right.
No,
A little snow then wouldn't hurt.
We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Tufts. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we will now go to the next item on our agenda, which is number 11, approval of the minutes. The following minutes are presented to the Township Council for approval. The Township Council work session regular meeting of February 11th, 2014, that was held at 7 p.m., and the Township Council executive session from February 11th, 2014. Is there a motion for the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please poll the council on approval of the minutes.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
I have to abstain.
Councilman Kramer? Mayor Levine?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Regan?
I abstain as I was not here at that meeting.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Okay. Motion is carried. All right. Next, we have approval of the warrant, which is item number 12 on our agenda. Warrants are the bills that we pay. Warrants in the amount of $2,519,982.54 on February 25th, 2014, are presented to the Township Council for payment. Is there motion to pay the warrants as read?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. McCarthy, please poll the council on payment of the warrants.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer? Mayor Levine?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Regan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Next, we come to our ordinance hearings. An ordinance usually goes into law after 2 votes. There's 1 vote where it's introduced. There's usually a second vote at the next meeting. And at that second meeting, there's a public hearing. People can make comments on those ordinances. If it's passed, then it goes into law. So there are no ordinances for second reading and no ordinances for introduction. I guess the town is finished. We have no more ordinances that we have to do. So we do have some resolutions. So we have consent agenda, items 15A through 15Q. These are listed on the consent agenda portion of the meeting, and they're presented to the Township Council for adoption. Is there a motion for the consent agenda or discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and so you know, it's any council person's prerogative to take a consent agenda item off for a separate vote. That wasn't done. Motion for the consent agenda was moved and seconded. Ms. McCarthy, please poll the council on the consent agenda.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
I actually had a question.
Do you, can I stop?
Sure.
I
Okay,
ask
yeah,
a
go ahead.
question?
Go ahead.
So this contract we're awarding for the recycling center,
What's the letter?
the N,
N, as in...
resolution N 14-126.
Okay.
Yes.
This amount, what is this?
That's-
55,000?
That's the amount of money to provide all of the containers and necessary to do all the recycling that we do. That's to basically run the convenience center from that point of view for the year. We have to have it hauled away. Some we get money for when we do it, but we have to have the service provide the containers and what have you during the course of the year to take the things away. Some of them we pay for, some of them we get the money in return when we have the recycled goods, but not everything is recyclable. So that's the annual contract to provide that service.
So this is not that contract when the gentleman came in here before, a couple meetings before?
No, this is,
County-
Oh, no,
This has nothing to
absolutely.
do with that.
This is to,
This is
the
our
mini dump.
convenience.
This is to run the mini dump.
Okay,
That's
okay.
it.
all right,
Exactly, yes.
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Levine?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Regan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Okay, motion is carried. We're now at item number 16. Resolutions voted on separately. This is where items, for whatever reason, are voted on separately, and we do not have any.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon me.
I said
Yes,
yes. and
Councilman Wright?
I had a question.
Okay.
Resolution
Go
14124, fireworks display at the
Yes,
Palace
item
of Somerset.
L.
Right, L. Before we used to have it so that whenever they had a fireworks display, it was put down. But now I see just March weddings. So are we giving them a blanket thing for March or something? Or
No, if you look at the resolution, it's two weddings. They're listed specifically in the resolution. It's not for the whole month.
Thank you.
And just, that wasn't our town fireworks. Councilman Wright was referencing at a venue such as the Palace on Davidson Avenue. Some weddings might have fireworks, so two of them had requested that. That's our approval of those. Councilman Wright is integral to our Independence Day fireworks, and you'll be coming forth with that, of course. Okay.
And I'm just waiting for it.
Okay. So 16, resolutions vote on separately. There are none. So you go to 17, old business, 2014 boards, commissions, and committee appointments. Are there any nominations for vacant positions? As none. Item number 18 is executive session. Executive session is when the council meets privately. There's only a few occasions on which the council can meet privately. One is attorney-client privilege, personnel matters, contract negotiations. When the subject of those discussions no longer needs to remain private, the minutes of those meetings will remain public. So Resolution 14-130, authorizing executive session, has two items for today: contract negotiations and personnel, bonding of finance employees. This is presented to the Township Council for adoption. Is there a motion for the resolution 14-130 for executive session authorization?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. McCarthy, please poll the council on the motion for executive session.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Levine?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Regan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Okay, motion is carried. So we're now going to go into executive session. At the conclusion of our discussion, we'll come back out here, and there's only going to be two pieces of business. Number one, we will vote to come out of executive session, and number two, we will vote to adjourn, and we will adjourn. So because of that, we're going to end our filming at this point. Thank you very much, and be well all.